And good afternoon. Thanks for joining us on your MTN statewide news on this Tuesday. I'm Andrea Lutz. New at noon. After decades of political wrangling, federal leaders finally wrapped up permanent funding for the Land and Water Conservation Fund. President Donald Trump signing the Great American Outdoors Act just this morning. This measure permanently sets aside billions for maintenance and infrastructure projects for national parks and federal lands. 35 years ago, President Ronald Reagan asked for a special commission to look into permanent funding for public lands. The revenue is paid for through oil and gas leasing. The fund has been a political bargaining chip through the years, but Congress finally found bipartisan support.
This is a big win for conservation. It's a big win for jobs. It's a big win for our Montana way of life. It's a big win for bipartisanship. And perhaps it's only fitting it took public lands to bring a divided government together.
We'll protect the Forest Service, our Fish and Wildlife Service, our wildlife refuges, our BLM grounds. This will work on our national parks. This will stop Congress from stealing the money that they have for decades and put it back into the national parks for generations to come.
Now, Senator John Tester, who introduced a bill for full funding about 11 years ago, calls today a, quote, big deal for the Treasure State's great treasure, our public lands. This afternoon, 82 new COVID-19 cases are reported in our state. There are the 15 new cases now in Bighorn County. Prairie County has its first case, this bringing our state's total to over 4,300 cases. Deaths remain at 64. In Wyoming, a Fremont County woman with pre-existing conditions became the 27th person to die from the virus in the Cowboy State. So far, Fremont County has 11 deaths, the most of any county in Wyoming. Just over 500 people are currently infected with COVID-19 across the state. Health officials announced 31 new cases. And the United States now has close to 5 million confirmed COVID-19 cases. This afternoon, fire crews have a firm handle on the Falling Star fire burning in Stillwater County. Officials say the fire was human-caused, burned 2,200 acres of private land. 300 homes north of Park City were threatened, but no structures were lost. The Yellowstone County Sheriff's Office is currently investigating the fire's official cause. Well, here's some more fires burning across our state. The Bonaccord fire near Dillon is 30% contained, burning at 200 acres in forest land. The old Baldy fire northeast of Twin Bridges has scorched 100 acres. And the Magpie fire in western Montana is over 60% contained. Fire officials say it held steady at 3,500 acres. More than 300 firefighters are working to put out that fire. All right, now we're checking back in with Ed McIntosh. He is tracking the weather for this Tuesday. Hi, Ed.
Hi. You know, we got all the wildfires and the dry conditions across Montana. The big weather story is along the eastern seaboard, where the tropical storm continues to move along. On the areas closer in towards the Atlantic, you see very strong winds and then flooding conditions as we start to look inland. This weather system started to come on shore through the Carolinas last evening and has been winding its way all the way up along the eastern seaboard ever since, going through Washington earlier and then up towards New York. And here's where those warnings have been coming in. Anything from flash flooding to tornadoes to areas where the winds have been extremely strong. We'll take a closer look at our local forecast coming up.
Investigators in Jackson Hole, Wyoming are still trying to figure out why 3 hot air balloons crashed shortly after takeoff, injuring 12 people. A witness said he watched as one of the balloons with a large basket careened into trees. A Texas man vacationing with his family recorded this video, and he says victims were dragged while the balloon was on its side. It took 4 separate agencies to help locate a 4- and 6-year-old after the kids went missing near Manhattan. Officials said they disappeared while playing in a field near their home. A helicopter assisted from above, and the children were found in good spirits. The kids were not out of the sight of their parents for very long, but authorities did say that they covered quite a bit of territory during that time. A Bozeman woman is behind bars for animal cruelty after officers removed 67 animals from her property. 35-year-old Cammie Ryman is charged with felony aggravated animal cruelty. Police say she had horse trailers loaded with sheep, goats, and other animals. She also had dogs and cats, geese, and lizards living inside her home, but the animals didn't have access to food and water. Her bond is set at $100,000. Now, crews are hard at work restoring the iconic Notre Dame Cathedral a year after the landmark caught fire. As Ian Lee reports, builders are picking up the tempo on one of the most difficult tasks yet.
The world held its breath watching Notre Dame burn in Paris last year, hoping the nearly 900-year-old cathedral would survive. Miraculously, much of it did, including the 18th century organ.
It's of course a big deal to do this because, as you probably know, the organ didn't burn, didn't melt, so it's apparently totally safe.
Johann Vexo is the cathedral's organist. He says while structurally the instrument is safe, it's unusable. This week, experts began removing the dangerous lead residue left by the fire. But dismantling, cleaning, and reassembling France's largest musical instrument is no easy task.
It's about 8,000 pipes inside, and the different parts of the mechanic of the action of the instrument. So a lot of metal and wood parts to clean.
Experts predict restoring the organ could take 4 years before it bellows again throughout the medieval building. The multi-year timeline is not for a lack of money, with donations raised in just days to a tune of $1 billion. France's President Emmanuel Macron hopes they're right. He wants the restoration completed by 2024, when Paris is set to host the Olympic Games. Ian Lee, CBS News, London.
And rehabilitation experts say it could take 10 to 20 years to restore the cathedral to its original glory. When COVID-19 forced the CM Russell Museum to push back its auction this past March, organizers decided to put a positive spin on it. The crew decided to hold art pieces from a previous auction, in addition to securing new work from the upcoming one. These new additions include a newly acquired CM Russell artifact piece. The museum also took the time to inform buyers about their new online auction and work to engage and bid through online platforms. There is a geographical advantage also to this year's auction because anyone from anywhere can actually participate. The online art auction will take place September 21st. All right, coming up next on the new news, we hit the rails at a new skate park that has a mountain town all ramped up with excitement. But first, Ed is up next with a look at your statewide weather forecast.
Storm Tracker weather starts now with meteorologist Ed McIntosh.
Welcome back. As we take a look, we had a lot of pictures coming in this morning from lightning from around the region, and Roundup right in through central Montana saw quite a bit of it, as we saw storm reports coming in anywhere from southern Idaho all the way into the southeastern corner of the state early in the morning. Now today and tomorrow, not quite as hot, but we have more hot temperatures, especially into the eastern plains on Thursday. Well, thunderstorms will start to develop towards the west, and summery temperatures as we start getting into the weekend and the furthest part of next week. Noontime temperatures are in the 70s to 80s pretty much across the board. We're off to a slightly warmer start, but we also had a few of these showers and thunderstorms lingering in eastern Montana this morning. A lot of that's starting to move off into the Dakotas, although we still see these little waves that are taking their time moving out around the Glendive, Baker area, Miles City here as of midday, but a quieter day across the rest of the region. Plenty of sunshine, winds are generally light, and we've got a big high pressure ridge that's still going to allow us to warm up, but mainly in the 80s for the daytime highs. We'll eke out a few low 90s through southern Montana into northern Wyoming, but pretty pleasant conditions overall. Stronger storms will develop here through the Dakotas, where that storm system that was bringing the wind and the storms across the area last evening is now moving off into the central plains and northern plains and off towards the Great Lakes states. Tomorrow we'll see a few isolated storms develop for the higher elevations, typical for this time of the year. There's still plenty of moisture around, so a few of those showers and thunderstorms will trip off for the mountains through central and southern Montana by the end of the day, but temperatures begin to warm just a little bit more by the end of the day on Wednesday. Now Thursday, things start to change again. We'll be hotter into the eastern plains. In fact, a lot of readings will be in the 90s, even mid to upper 90s through areas of southern Montana. But showers, thunderstorms, especially storms that create some wind, will start to develop for you in western Montana Thursday through the day, and then start to push across the eastern plains Thursday night heading into Friday. Beyond that, it looks like a little more stable weather pattern. For today, we're looking at mainly the 80s for the daytime highs, and we'll see a few low 90s along the way with these thunderstorms starting to roll off in towards the Dakotas. Overnight temperatures will slide down mainly into the 50s to around 60 degrees, but we could see some readings drop down into the low 50s or upper 40s. Butte, we'll have our eye on you first thing tomorrow morning, and some areas of the eastern plains and along the High Line as well. Tomorrow, we'll look for highs to be in the 80s to low 90s, and you can see things become a little more active. Just a few stray showers and thunderstorms, but enough to keep an eye on as we start getting into the afternoon. Temperatures are typically going to be close to seasonal averages tomorrow afternoon, but start to hit a peak, especially east of the divide as we get in towards Thursday. For areas around western Montana, you'll see at least a chance of showers or thunderstorms. A lot of that could just be with some gusty winds. For Great Falls and Helena, over the next several days, 80s. You see the bump in the temperatures tomorrow to the low 90s, and then Thursday, that cold front will start to move through the region. You'll still see some warm afternoon readings. Bozeman and Butte, looking at temperatures starting to rise again towards Thursday. That cold front moves through with isolated storms. And then for areas into the eastern plains, we'll look for temperatures to really peak into the eastern portion of the state on Thursday afternoon, but start to downshift a bit. A few isolated storms could bring periods of wind with them as well. So it's really going to hold into those summertime temperatures with scattered storms. Andrea, back to you.
All right, thanks, Ed. A group in Red Lodge is raising money to bring a new skate park into town. MTN's Scott Breen shows us why skaters there say it's much needed.
So you were telling me you could do all that same stuff.
No.
What can you do?
I'll show you.
They all want to show us what they can do, but Hell Roaring Skate Park is almost 2 decades old, and it's showing.
As you can see, we've got a lot of wood features, and anyone that knows Red Lodge climate, it's not conducive to the weather. You know, we can put a lot of money into wood features, and by next spring, you can't really tell.
And every year we come out here with volunteers because the funding's not there for fixing it with city funds, so we do this all with volunteer work.
You're repairing something that can't be repaired.
So, instead of putting a fresh coat of paint, so to speak, over the same worn-out ramps, here's the blueprint for a new skate park that'll rival the best in our region and beyond.
That means all these ramps could disappear and we'll put it back all into concrete.
Bonk says this is one of the most popular Red Lodge parks, not only every summer, but through spring and fall. Kids can't always get up to the mountains. Aaron Cairo knows. He grew up a few blocks away and is now a pro skater in San Francisco, on board with a generous donation. Price tag for the new park is about $200,000, and the crew is already around $125,000 since ramping up the venture in October, and they're still seeking donations. Ireland Ramey is 12 years old, says it'd be cool to turn pro one day. Two of his favorite tricks, 50-50 and rock to fakie.
Your board comes up, go over the coping, and then come back down it. And then 50-50 is like when you come up and then like stay there and drop back in.
If you haven't noticed, this park caters to more than skateboards.
If kids want to come out with scooters, kids want to come out with bikes, BMX bikes, we're not going to turn anybody away.
Naturally, a day at this park is not all smooth rides and mind-blowing finishes, which is exactly why they keep coming back.
Promotes perseverance with the kids, you know, after that fall, they keep trying to get back up.
It's the getting up part that makes skateboarding such a cool thing, especially when a community is able to provide that for. I'm a testament to that because I've been doing it and stayed with it, and now it's a vehicle that can take me around the world.
Also looks like it's a busy skate park. So if you do want to donate or learn more, you can visit the website hellroaringskatepark.com. Your latest Ag News is coming up next with Russell Nemens.
Report from the Montana Ag Network.
Hi everybody, it's time for your Farm and Ranch News. Well, AgriBeef has announced it plans to open a new packing plant down in Jerome, Idaho that'll process around 500 head of cattle per day. And company officials say that the Jerome plant will operate as True West Beef and employ 400 workers. Of course, Agra Beef already operates Washington Beef, located in Toppenish, Washington, which has a daily harvest capacity there of 1,550 head. Other brands associated with Agra Beef are Snake River Farms, Double R Ranch, St. Helens Beef, and Rancho El Oro. Agra Beef also operates Snake River Farms Feed Yard down at American Falls, Idaho, Boise Valley Feeders at Parma, Idaho, and El Oro Cattle Feeders at Moses Lake, Washington. And of course, cattlemen and cattlewomen right here in Montana do raise quite a few head of cattle for Agra Beef. So this indeed is not only good news for consumers, but also cattle producers across our region. In some other news, the pace of Chinese purchases of U.S. agricultural commodities has certainly picked up here in recent weeks. Industry experts are speculating that the Asian country is trying to catch up on its Phase 1 trade agreement obligations. Ben Cash is with Bauer Trading and says there may be a little more to it than just that.
That's the question. Is it political driven from the Phase 1, or is it fundamental because they're having production issues? And maybe a food crisis on their hands too. They've had some weather issues that we haven't really talked about until they started buying here. They had a dry region in the North China Plain. That's a major growing region. China's a huge country, so they grow all kinds of crops across many, many acres. I mean, they're second largest wheat grower. They're second largest corn grower.
Now he says end users are also worried about the availability of grains for China's expanding livestock sector because production problems forced China to draw down the size of its grain stocks, and the country needs to build up those reserves once again. Well, stay with us. We'll have more ag news right after this. USDA crop progress report. It looks like winter wheat harvest slowed a little bit last week, moving ahead just 4 percentage points to reach 85% complete as of this past Sunday, with Montana showing the least progress at 20%. Meanwhile, spring wheat conditions increased another 3 percentage points to 73% good to excellent. That's actually still the third highest rating for the spring wheat crop in the past 10 years or so. Montana spring wheat, by the way, is still in 80% good to excellent condition. Meanwhile, pasture and range conditions are now in 52% good to excellent condition. And certainly these hot and dry temperatures here of late are starting to take their toll on available pasture and forages across Big Sky country and the rest of the Rocky Mountain region for our livestock. Well, that's a look at your farm and ranch news. Have a great day.
Well, a 108-year-old Denver woman had one wish for her birthday. She wanted one card for every year of her life. The community banded together to make her wish come true. She received 125 cards. Let's hope that means that she lives at least that many more years. It may not be as difficult as it sounds, because she's already lived through the Spanish flu of 1918, COVID-19, of course. When asked about her secret to a long life, she said, "Nothing. I just live day to day." Look at that. That's a way to live.
That's right. Yeah, that was her advice. It's a really
pretty good
way
advice.
to live.
I like it.
Temperatures are going to be warming up into the 80s and 90s pretty consistently. Now, we will see a little bit of a downturn towards the end of the week. Thursday into Friday, Missoula, Kalispell, you'll start to feel the effects of that next weather system moving in. Great Falls and Helena, looking at temperatures 80s, 90s pretty consistently in the afternoons, 50s and 60s for the overnight lows. And you'll notice most places we're not running above a 20% chance of a shower or thunderstorm at any point in the 5-day forecast, but it could get very hot into the eastern plains. Glendive and Billings well up into the 90s on Thursday.
All right, thanks so much for joining us today on the Noon News. We'll see you back here tomorrow.